Episode 3 Development and the Teacher's Assistants. A light wind blew through the wide-open windows, bringing in the hot breath of the midday glow. Here, under the roof of the temple, hidden from prying eyes, it was pleasantly cool. The sun's golden flecks played on the translucent curtains and silk wall draperies, filling the space with soft, diffused light. The keeper of the knowledge sat on a small stage built in the front of the spacious room and concentrated on answering the students' questions, interpreting the complex laws of the universe in simple, accessible language. Several dozen eyes were turned toward the sage. "Beloved teacher," said one of the students, a woman of middle age with an ideal Greek profile, "should we seek happiness here on earth? You see, my grandmother is almost 100 years old, and one day I asked her, 'You've lived for so long, but tell me, have you found happiness in life?' And she answered, 'I have lived for 100 years, but I haven't found happiness. Maybe people are lying, and there is no happiness at all.'" The sage listened to the question, and after taking a careful look at all present, spoke confidently. "We are sent here to earth to refine ourselves and to learn difficult lessons. We will find happiness in the next world. There will be the finest emotions, the most sublime states, and we will feel God by our side. Here we are given difficult lessons, which is why here on earth we are in a state of ignorance. If we were omniscient, then there would be no lessons to be learned." When the teacher paused, a young, elegant girl raised her hand. Unlike many other students, she was not wearing the usual orange attire, but plain jeans and a blouse, and her shoulders were covered with a multicolored scarf. "I want to tell you about what's happening to me right now," she began, and the keeper of the knowledge nodded approvingly, encouraging her willingness to speak out. "When I started helping people, I really liked it, because it made people happy," said the girl, carefully choosing her words and trying to express her thoughts as accurately as possible. "And recently, a blogger girl offered me an interview about it. I agreed, but during the broadcast she began throwing mud at me in every possible way, and just disgraced me before thousands of subscribers. Now I think I'm not capable of helping people at all." The girl paused and looked at the keeper of the knowledge quizzically. "And maybe I shouldn't be at school at all." She spoke the last words so softly that it was hard to hear her. "I don't like this whole situation, and to be honest, I'm ready to give up." The sage stared at the student, but there was not even a hint of condemnation in his eyes. Unconditional love, acceptance, and compassion flowed through his gaze to the girl. "A person often gives up at the first obstacle," he said in a calm, even voice. "But why did we come to earth in the first place?" The keeper of the knowledge asked the question and fell quiet, patiently waiting for the girl to answer. She thought about it, turning over the options in her head, and silence hung in the room. The other students were also thinking, which could be seen on their concentrating faces. "To gain experience for the development of the soul," the girl finally said, with a hint of a question. The sage nodded approvingly. "That is right, Agatha," he smiled. "We came to gain experience and learn. And a person thinks that he will immediately, being still illiterate, begin to get A's. This cannot be happening. A person should learn to become smart, and only after that can he achieve something. The first time we do something, we cannot immediately expect others to applaud us. An aspect forms, a situation arises, and God gives us lessons. And when someone condemns us, when someone says something bad about us, we must realize that this is another lesson of God. And the most important thing here is to draw the right conclusions, to learn from your own experience. Keeper, but what happens if we give up what didn't work out and start doing something else? The girl asked again. This lesson of God, will we have to go through it anyway? Yes, that is right, the sage replied with authority. It does not matter what a person does. In any case, sooner or later, there will be some mistakes, some errors, and something will go wrong, because that is what we are here for, to experience such things. A good trine comes, and there is a positive influence of the planets, and it helps us gain strength and get some rest. A smart person uses the trine in order to tune in to the upcoming difficulties, prays with all his might, and develops spiritually. Then comes a square, opposition, negative aspects, and a difficult situation arises that must be perceived and overcome correctly. Teacher, and if we may go back to my situation, Agatha took the floor again, did I understand you right, that even if I leave school, the bad situations will not stop? Exactly, the sage replied, looking at the student with unshakable love. No matter where you go next, no matter what you do, the same aspects and difficult situations will repeat. Because you have not gone through these lessons and have not drawn the necessary conclusions. The teacher spoke without an edifying tone and did not try to accuse. He simply stated a fact, revealing the deep essence of human existence on earth. And these situations, are they different for all people? Asked a stumpy guy with squinty eyes. Is this for a reason, too? So each person has to pay off his own karma? That is right, Eldar. The soul comes to earth to learn lessons that it did not receive in past lives. And that is why we were sent here now, so that our souls would realize something necessary. For example, so that we would stop feeling offended, angry, taking off the rose-tinted glasses, and so on. And if a person thinks that everything will be different in some other place, that if he starts doing something, he will be given A's and people will applaud him, but this is not going to happen. He will go to another place, and the same things will happen there, and he will make the same mistakes, because they are connected with the structure of his psyche. And what should be done to put an end to these situations, the guy asked, voicing the question that concerned everyone. This person must change himself, said the keeper of the knowledge. He must change his thought, his approach to life. If he does not change, does not take off his rose-tinted glasses, then he will go down this road again, and everything will repeat. The main thing is to have a teacher nearby who can explain everything, promptly and directly. All his mistakes will be repeated in any place, no matter where he is and no matter what he does. But there may be no teacher already, and that is the worst thing. Then the person will just sulk, take offense, cry, and worry but not change. He will remain a fool who only complains about how bad life is. He will justify himself and think, fate is hard, people are bad. He blames everyone but himself. He will find 1,000 excuses for himself instead of thinking, I am a fool. And that is what he should have started from. I am a fool, and I need to learn and become smart. This is the greatest Sitha, a superpower that needs to be developed. The teacher paused again and looked around at all the students to see what state they were in, whether they were ready to move on and comprehend the truth contained in his words. "Keeper, and how do we become smart?" asked one of the students, a bright brunette in a light orange robe. "How do we come to the necessary realizations so that the bad situation does not happen again?" The sage smoothed down his short beard, as if deliberately taking his time with the answer, letting the students think about it themselves. "You cannot just become smart," he said after a pause, and smiled mysteriously. "A person becomes smart only by going through difficult situations. In them, he gets the opportunity to grow and develop if he starts working on himself. That is where we need to start. Do not justify yourself. Do not look for the guilty, because it does not help you to change. On the contrary, it keeps you at the same level. You need to start with an awareness of the need to learn, with moral preparation for difficult situations, with getting in tune to gaining experience. This is how a person should think. Now situations will happen, to which I will tune in, prepare, and go through them correctly." "And how do we understand whether we are drawing the right conclusions from the situation or not?" asked another student, a brown-eyed, clean-shaven man. "Let's assume I think that I understand, but what if it's just my subjective vision? Maybe I think I'm aware of everything, but in fact I'm still wearing the rose-tinted glasses." The keeper of the knowledge listened attentively to the question and sent rays of warmth and grace to the student. "That is what a teacher is for," he explained. "He is the one who explains everything and helps to wake up, rid them of illusions, and take off the rose or black-colored glasses. In life, all people experience difficult situations, but there is no one to explain their true meaning and significance. Therefore, many people often do not understand why something has happened. A person thinks, I'm as wise as Solomon, but why was I robbed again? Why was I deceived? How did it happen? Such a person often does not understand that he is still stupid, and he needs to study for a long time, because what he was taught at university was absolutely lifeless knowledge that had nothing to do with life. Tangents, cotangents, logarithms. But in real life, there is nothing of what he crammed to pass his exams. And now he is left with a load of this lifeless knowledge and with his mother's delusions in his head. And nothing works out for him in life, and little is he able to do. But what is the way out? What should we do? To be glad that these situations arose when a teacher appeared, whom you can ask for explanations. What is the lesson about, and how to use this lesson correctly, for development, for growth, how to understand it correctly, and how to turn it into a spiritual practice. Cramming will not help here, nor will tangents and cotangents. To develop, you need to refine yourself, change your reactions, emotions, and thoughts. Is it possible to realize this independently, without a teacher? Agatha asked. It is very difficult to do. A person can be stuck in a situation for a long time and never understand. So it meant that any difficulty is in fact a blessing, and if you properly deal with this experience, analyze your behavior, find mistakes, understand the true meanings, said the brown-eyed man, summing up everything that the keeper of the knowledge had said, then why do people often reject help? Why are they offended when a teacher or someone else points out mistakes to them? If a person rejects the hand of the teacher, he rejects the hand of God, said the sage. Offense is more important to him than spiritual practice, more important than development. Therefore, we must boldly face different situations. Yes, there will be mistakes. They are inevitable. But difficulties on the path of life are the real spiritual practice. Teacher, what about meditations and prayers? A quiet voice suddenly arose from somewhere in the back of the room. Are these not real spiritual practices? The voice belonged to an inconspicuous, thin woman whose head was covered with a black and white kerchief. This student was standing behind everyone, next to the wall. It was obvious that the question asked concerned and bugged her so much that despite her inner shyness, she wanted to reach a deep understanding of the essence, to the very core of the truth. This is a very good question, Vera, the teacher encouraged the woman. Let us say that if we do spiritual practices somewhere in a corner, we sit and pray. That is one thing. This is easy enough to do. And if a situation arises that deeply affects us, then negative emotions and bad thoughts appear. At this moment, our ego is wounded, and our false personality suffers. Only then does the real spiritual practice begin. The spiritual practice of prayer was only a preparation to perceive the real spiritual practice correctly. Therefore, in prayer, it is necessary to say, I know that there will be some bad aspect, and a bad situation will arise, and instead of resenting life and other people and experiencing negative emotions, instead of ruminating about bad things again, I will work on myself. I will begin to exaggerate my state. I will begin to disidentify myself. And I will begin to ask the teacher how to understand all this correctly, how to change to benefit from this situation. That is what you need to think about. The keeper finished, and silence hung in the room for a few moments again. Now the students were trying on what they had heard, processing the information they had received. The sage did not just share the knowledge, he transferred part of the energy, warmed everyone with his unconditional love, and this helped the students to receive sublime vibrations of the soul, to achieve clarity and understanding. The lights of insight sparkled in the eyes of many of them, but as they became aware, other questions naturally arose. Dear teacher, Agatha said suddenly, I need your advice. What should I do next? Any remark about me causes internal resistance, a strong protest. Intellectually, I understand that this is not right, but I can't do anything about my emotions. Tell me, how can I quickly learn to accept criticism with gratitude and humbleness? You need to pray in advance when everything is calm, and tune in, the sage replied. And when a person is strongly attuned, then all these situations will turn beneficial and become steps of growth. He paused for a few seconds and looked expressively at the girl, then shifted his gaze to the other students. Being well attuned is very important. Beloved teacher, and how should we pray properly? Eldar asked with a sincere desire to understand. How are we to tune in, to turn obstacles into steps of growth? You need to ask the Lord to help and make you strong in a difficult situation, to make you understand, so that through this situation you could elaborate all the things for which He came to earth as soon as possible. If we tune in like this, if we pray like this, then everything will be different for us. And if we walk and only dream I am so great, everyone should recognize me, everyone should clap their hands all the time, then with such a mood, it will be difficult to survive even trifles. Some simple nuisance can become very painful because we swelled up like a soap bubble, and suddenly this soap bubble will burst. And why? The keeper of the knowledge got up from his seat and with a smooth floating gait moved to the edge of the stage, peering into the faces of the audience as if scanning their thoughts. Because we prayed incorrectly, suggested Eldar, answering the question. The sage nodded. And our mood was wrong. We wanted to amuse our pleasure centers in a false way, exalting and praising ourselves. This false way is very dangerous. The more we exalt ourselves, the more severe depression we will face later, when we see that everything is really not as we imagined. And true pleasure is sublime emotions. Love people more, have more compassion, be kind, be in the grace of God, pray more. This is true happiness, which leads to development and destroys egoism in us. The more we love people and God, the more we feel compassion and become kinder, the more egoism is destroyed in us, and then we start feeling happy. When the keeper of the knowledge uttered these words, something amazing happened. The sounds of his voice began to vibrate, and the space suddenly exploded with bright ringing energy. Everyone next to the teacher felt a surge of strength, an incredible spiritual uplift, extreme clarity and lightness. They looked at each other in surprise, smiling. And then the elegant girl with a colorful scarf on her shoulders separated from the group of students. Agatha took a step toward the teacher, unable to contain the state that had seized her. There were tears of happiness in her eyes. "Thank you for the knowledge," she said fervently. "Now I understand." She tried to concentrate in order to express her overwhelming emotions, to put them into appropriate words. If any difficulties arise again, if something doesn't go the way I want it, if people throw mud at me or tell me something wrong, I will use it as a practice. I will stop being offended and stay in negative thoughts about being misunderstood, ruminating about that. In fact, it's all wrong, that people are unfair, that the whole world is bad. I will begin to use these situations for development, for growth, and I will begin to work on myself, my shortcomings and my qualities. The rest of the students quieted down, listening to the girl's words of gratitude, and when Agatha finished, the hall burst into applause. "It is difficult to climb the stairs up the mountain," said the keeper of the knowledge when relative silence was established in the temple. "But if there were no stairs, it would be impossible to reach the summit at all. We need these stairs." He looked around at the students and smiled a transparent, bright smile. "Blessed are the obstacles, for they help us grow." That is how you should understand and explain it all to other people, to make them understand it too, so that they will rejoice when a difficult situation arises, and the teacher will help with the spiritual practice. He will explain everything. That is what you have to think about, what to tune into, what to pray for. The sage paused before the lines of a laconic and simple verse sounded in the hall, accurately reflecting the essence of today's spiritual conversation. "The stones beneath your feet do not condemn. Rejoice on this high peak, for you have done it. The truth is, if it had not been for them, would you have ever climbed this very summit?" We invite you to join spiritual seminars, workshops, and retreats hosted by the Leader Masters. Reveal your superpowers, find your predestination, and accumulate power to gain well-being and bring your goals to life. Send an email saying, "I want to join the seminar" to our mailbox, and we will give you all the information. See you soon.